Farewell, My King, the Cult of Me podcast is all about John 3:30. He must become greater, I must become less. We have to kill our own kingship to truly understand our relationship with God through Jesus Christ. And that's what we're all about.
Welcome to the podcast. Man, it is good to see everybody. Wade Carey, Ray Newmans. So, Wade, what's on your mind today? What do we need to talk about?
Anxiety, the silent killer.
Good topic, Wade. So, let's just say we do this. I know a lot of people talk about anxiety, but most people don't talk how to deal with it. So, what is the 5 ways anxiety, or 5 reasons why anxiety must be dealt with?
Well, I mean, I've got a bunch of stuff in the book that's coming out, and it looks like it may be June of 2025. So anxiety has to be dealt with because a lot of times it's silent, and we have to be able to understand what it is before we can do anything about it. So there are 5 things that you and I batted around. Why don't you throw the first one up and we'll start swinging at it?
Okay. Well, number 1. Anxiety is a killer.
Anxiety is a killer. You hear things, anxiety, stress, fear, all these things kind of combine together in a cauldron that the enemy will always want to use against us and constantly feed us these things, when the only prescription really is the Bible and the hope that Jesus gives us. So the enemy is always going to be coming at us to instill fear, and the Bible tells us, I don't know, Ray, how many times to fear not?
A bunch. I mean, there's a lot of times where we get told that so many times. I used to know. I think it's right there at 300. It might be 365, 367, because I've heard it said that there is do not fear for at least every day of the year in the Bible. Yeah. So I mean, I'd have to go check it, but I'm sure there might be a theologian out there that knows the answer. So please let us know. But I believe we're looking at 364, 65 times that it says do not fear. So that's a pretty big deal. So Wade, with the killer, I mean, is that only like taking someone's life, or is there more to it being a killer? Does it take more, or
it's sort of like sending a hitman after us that's got a silencer and you don't know what direction they're coming from? That's really what anxiety is most of the time we don't really even know that it's there. I think that in the pursuit of the American dream, so many of us start taking on responsibilities, and the stress and the pressure, and of course we're finding out about how corrupt our government is and how wasteful it is, and how the life is being sucked out of your regular working class families, that the pressure becomes so enormous. And Satan's in this for the long game. He ultimately wants to kill us because he despises God's creation. He despises the fact that we become, through Jesus Christ, adopted as sons and daughters, and he apparently hates that pretty bad. He's constantly coming after us, so the best way to do it is stealthily through the use of anxiety that sometimes takes even decades to take its full effect on us. But there is a physiological, but there's also our soul and our spirit made in the image of God. He's always coming after us no matter what. And again, he's that assassin that's got the silencer, and we're not going to even really see it coming a lot of times.
Yeah, I would say in my personal experience with this tragedy, or this train wreck, it almost took my life. It physically almost took the physical life from me. But what it took before and after that, when I did not deal with it, it took the joy, the hope, the peace, all the things, the Galatian things of the love, peace, gentleness. It robbed me of it all. And I just think that there's probably some Christians out there, and non-believers too, that when this thing gets a hold of them, it just holds on to everything in their life. It becomes a weight, like that millstone hung around your neck that just keeps you where maybe if you tilt your head back, you can breathe. But just as soon as you relax, you're drowning again. So I think It kills your time. It kills your time. It kills your relationships. And then it could honestly physically still take the body too. Yes. I mean, stress and anxiety are the number one killer in the world, because that is a result, or I guess you could say one of the components that leads to cancer, heart attacks. I mean, all this other stuff.
High blood pressure. And yeah, I mean, there's so many parts of it that are physiological, but the body tends to follow, or doesn't tend to, it does follow the battle in us between our spirit and our soul, with our spirit made in the image of God and our soul is our distinct personalities and our intellect and experiences. And as a Christian, we have to make sure that our spirit rules over our soul, because the natural person is always going to lean towards sin and doing it my way and that kind of thing. So, we have to address it from the immaterial part of us, which is our spirit and our soul. The body will follow. And if we fix the spirit, and then it goes downstream to our soul, then the body will benefit ultimately from it. And it may take time, if it's taken a long time to get you to a place where your physical body is experiencing tremendous amounts of stress. There's lots of forms of different types of gluttony, overeating, drugs, alcohol. I mean, there's so many things that we can turn to, but those are things that are downstream. If we fix it up at the faucet, then it's going to improve. But if we just deal with the physical, or even the things that are within our human psychology, that's not going to fix. That's not the ultimate fix for the problem.
I can't agree anymore. I mean, I believe that's a good summary of what this could do as far as killing you. So let's go to number 2. And I think a lot of people are going to relate to this. It's a liar. There's actually a song that calls Sin is a Liar. It's one of the more modern worship songs that you might hear in your churches. But isn't anxiety also the liar in this? It tells you things that are not true. And just speak on maybe even some of the personal lies that you've been told, because I know for a fact I've been told so many lies that not good enough, not worthy enough, not supposed to have this, not supposed to do that. So speak to anxiety having to be dealt with, because anxiety is a liar.
That's actually really important. And I have a whole chapter in the new book, Walks with Wally, that addresses that. Anxiety, when you're not dealing with it from a spiritual perspective, becomes fuel. It's a thing. The anxiety actually continues to fuel you moving forward and doing all this stuff. And then you're just mindlessly doing things and you become almost like a robot. That's why it's a liar. Is this fuel is good for your tank, but it's really not. It's poison. The fuel that we need is the hope in the gospel. There's no other fuels, but typically we get used to the humanistic end of it, which is, well, just fill it with anxiety, and ultimately it's going to destroy everything that you have. And that's why it's a liar. It'll seem like it's good, and the anxiety drives us into, like I say, the different gluttonous acts with overeating and smoking and all these other things that we all fall victim to. I mean, everybody's got a little soft spot in their soul, and oftentimes that'll leak out into some unhealthy activities.
Them unhealthy activities can be some of the places where that's where I think you hear most of the Christian testimonies from, is when it comes down to us running from this lie. Well, I know these next two kind of run close to lying, but they're completely different. So number 3 out of 5 would be that it's a deceiver. Now, me and you understand the difference between lying and deceiving. Eve was deceived in the garden, saying, right, hey, that won't kill you. He didn't lie to her. Okay, sin will lie to you and tell you things that are not true. But how does anxiety deceive you?
Well, we kind of touched on it just a second ago. It deceives you by thinking that you're doing the right thing, but when you're experiencing fear and you're dealing with all of the things that are purely humanistic, where God's kind of been put off to the side, that's where the deception is. That pizza will give you comfort, that those cigarettes will give you comfort, that those drugs are going to make you feel better, or that extra drink or that bottle is going to make you feel better. It's all these things. That's where the deceit comes from. Satan will create this, like I said, this cauldron. It'll start boiling, and then we start going off into unhealthy things. So that's where the deception is. Okay, well, here's some comfort. Well, of course, that's what the enemy wants to do, because he wants to kill us. Does he not?
Yeah, I mean, that's primary his purpose. He does want to take our life. But he knows for the believer that our lives are already been taken by someone else. So what is the second best thing you can do, is just make this life as difficult and as hard as it possibly could be, and antagonize us. So I'm trying to give us more time on 5, because I know that's going to be a big topic. So number 4 would be a manipulator. So anxiety manipulates us, and I think it maybe manipulates our behavior more than it manipulates us, like our environment. I know it's manipulated me. And so I'll speak to manipulation, is that when I have tried to engage even into the Christian body, the church or other people, it creates this place where I start filling in the blanks and I start getting manipulated by my own thoughts and my own, I guess you say, my own doubts. So has there been a moment where you just like say, hey, look, I'm being manipulated by this? Because of course, being lied to and deceived, now being manipulated, sounds like a pretty abusive relationship already. We would already called the cops and got someone removed out of the house by now. So
Right.
how can sin manipulate us? I mean, even sometimes into maybe not even believing that our Bible's true anymore.
It's a matter of which fork in the road we're going to take. That's chapter 3 in the Walks with Wally. And if you look at the cover, you'll see that you turn one direction, you're turning towards hope, and you take the other direction, you're heading towards anxiety. The manipulation comes with dragging on the human side of us, our soul, and getting us to fight the battle alone. And that's where I've done it. I mean, I'd give myself an F on that. I've tried to take on so much, even though my faith has grown, it's been strong, but I'm fighting this battle not in the spirit. And I've taken the road to anxiety instead of going down the road towards where hope is, closer to God, closer to the church, closer to the mission in life. As I depict in the book, you take the wrong fork toward anxiety and it leads straight to the funeral home, straight to it. And that's what he wants to do. When we come to that fork, we do it in our salvation, but we also do it in the things that we do while we're here on earth. If Satan can get us to go towards a funeral home and away from the church, then over a period of time, we're going to end up in that funeral home spiritually and physically.
Man, that is a mouthful. And I hope everyone that's listened just pauses this video, slides back about 3 minutes and just listens to that again, because you really need to hear what was said there and just the difference between hearing and listening, whichever way that goes. Just do the one that really is going to implant this into your brain, because this is a big deal. This is an extremely big deal. And now I'm about to put number 5 on the board, and Wade is going to be running through this place like a freight train, because we've even got a podcast titled on this. And I believe number 5 it is a matrix. It puts you in the matrix. It puts you into a false place. And we love the matrix. You take the red pill or the blue pill. I'm a big fan of the show, and I do still watch it every year and all that stuff. But there's so much truth into, you either swallow the truth pill or you swallow the I stay the same and stay in the line pill. So the last thing that has to be dealt with anxiety for this podcast would be unplugging from the matrix of anxiety. Wade, how do you do that? How do you unplug from this thing that's created this parallel universe for you?
Well, we talked about, fuel, and we talked about the fork in the road. We've talked about several things, but when you get locked into a matrix, essentially that means that you have been locked into a place where you're blind. You cannot really see what's going on. The life is being sucked out of you, and you don't even know it. You're living in a fantasy world. And when we take that path towards the funeral home, that's exactly what we do. We get locked in. We don't really see what's going on. We don't understand what is going on. We think we're doing the right thing. And this is where a lot of deception in the church is, that people think that they're doing right by working hard, when God doesn't want us to walk down the path of overworking ourselves and being stressed and being fearful. Fear 100% of the time belongs to the enemy. 0 is fear a part of God. Just like I talk about when we discuss the political matrix, there is no time where one person is going against another person where God is glorified. 0. And that's how you can tell the enemy is attacking, is when the basic fundamentals of the Christian faith, loving God with all our heart and soul, loving our neighbors ourselves. And that's what Satan does with the political matrix, is he gets us against each other. And in the anxiety matrix is we're actually living in a false world where we're fighting these battles without God, down a pathway of fear, and it is absolutely destructive. And once you've gone that far, you're right at the edge of where the funeral home is. Something bad's going to happen. Your spirit's going to experience death, or your body is going to experience death, or both. There is no way God can be glorified when we are caught up dancing with this specter of disgusting satanic attributes that anxiety brings into our life.
Once again, I hope someone rewinds this tape and listens to this video and listens to this a little deeper. So on the same topic of the Matrix, because that's the reason why I put this at the back of the podcast, because I knew this was a place that you were going to have to speak to in detail. So in your book, Walks with Wally, if you look through this book, there is a Matrix kind of element to one part of the book, and that's shadow boxing with Ghost. Am I correct to say that?
That's
Okay,
correct.
so now shadow boxing with Ghost, you having to realize you're in the Matrix and then fight your way out. So could you explain shadow boxing with Ghost and what you meant by it in the book?
Well, the first thing is it came about as an observation that you dropped on me, and with me really coming near, I guess, when Walks with Wally is out, and some of you will be watching this after it's already out. I'll have over 800,000 published words. As we're walking through life, the problem with anxiety is oftentimes we are fighting fictitious battles. Now, I know there's a lot of different types of anxiety that psychology will tell us about. I believe that the hiddenness of this anxiety that I have suffered from in this, where I'm basically going weeks, days, weeks, and months ahead to fight battles that don't exist. And that's the real danger of the whole thing, is we're walking down this road of life. And when we get used to dealing with trauma, which we all do, then when anxiety is the fuel for the vehicle that you're driving through life, then you're going to end up trying to fight battles that don't exist. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, I've got a little bit of a cough. Oh my gosh, I've got double pneumonia. I mean, it's just those types of things that can happen, because it appears to me what we're really doing here is jumping ahead to try to protect ourselves from more trauma. And again, I'm not trying to come at this like a clinician. I'm someone who is walking down this pathway and trying to understand what it is and get people to talk about it and understand the anxiety in themselves, so that we can use the medicine that's in the Bible that is the hope to get ourselves past this. But when you notice that, I mean, I was experiencing anxiety for decades, and I don't think anybody recognized it more than my wife, Alyssa, and you, because I talk to you guys more than anyone else, and you could see it going on. And when you said that, as someone who's got all these published words that I was just talking about, is I can hear a headline. I mean, something clicks, and that's the kind of thing that's always happened with my books, is when I can hear an idea, something that can immediately make my mind run off, and I can just see it almost like watching a movie. And that's what shadowboxing with Ghost is. And that's why it's really the feature in the Walks with Wally book, is because this silent anxiety I'm trying to bring awareness to, where trying to pursue this American dream is absolutely bringing so much anxiety and stress and fear, because it's hard to survive in a world, and especially for our younger people who can't afford apartments because they're so unbelievably, ridiculously expensive. All these things are happening. The world is either going to go one direction or another. It's going to get better, or it's going into revelation, because that's how bad that Satan has poisoned our entire world with the economics of what's going on. And that downhill stress is absolutely part of what Satan wants to do, to stuff us in this matrix where we don't know what's going on, just like I didn't. But now I do. And now I've got a book that I'm trying to use as an antidote and share with everyone, that I hope brings about fellowship, if that makes any sense.
Well, it does. Fellowship in this is going to be unreal. But I want to remind everybody. So every day that we wake up and continue in life, that is one day further from that cross that we are. And if you've read the back of the book and you've studied this, while there will be ebbs and flows of times of prosperity and times of famine, there will be a time of prosperity that is not going to be very prosperous for the people of this earth. So and I can hear Wade speaking into this so much, is that we have to wake up. We have to unplug from the matrix. Take the red pill. Wake up. We are fighting a battle of good and evil, not just blue and red or whatever politics. I mean, that is such a secondary and minimalistic issue of what the bigger global problem is. The global problem is right now, we are trucking our way away from the cross. And the further we get, I just can't believe that God's becoming more patient with us as we move the way we're moving in society. You have so many things right now that are about to open up in this world. AI, not just basic AI, we're talking like super intelligence AI. That could be something that changes the way we perceive the world. So we're stacking a deck where truth is going to be extremely hard to see and find. And it's going to be very easy to get plugged into a matrix if you want to or not. I was listening to some people yesterday that said, hey, either you're on board with AI or you're going to be left behind and be subject to AI. Goodness, we use AI to do our shorts. I use the software to help us.
Like Skynet, it's terrifying to me, but I know it's part of life. Just, well, the internet at one time was like, what is this thing? I think that we have to slowly, kind of find our way into these things, because mankind has shown if it gets too much technology too quickly, then God gets left out of it. And even world famous atheists like Richard Dawkins have talked about a Christian society is highly desirable because it allows people to live, but it's still based on good fundamental moral laws. It's not, the Christian faith is not about a theocracy. And boy, you and I have talked about that plenty of time, Dre, where the mission of the church now is to make disciples. It's not to force them. It's not to, where you got to bend the knee, is to present the gospel and people can choose. So a free society like we have in the U.S. is the ideal society here on earth. And it's so important that things like AI and the technology, they're wonderful. But if they've got to get rolled out in a way where mankind can absorb it and not get so absorbed with itself over it, because that's what history has always shown.
Couldn't agree any more with you. Well, Wade, I want to thank you for being on today. Everyone who's watched us this far, thank you for your participation. I'm going to put up on the screen right now where you can reach us. It'll actually be physically on the screen. I will make a plug. Please subscribe to the podcast. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to YouTube, and it helps us reach a bigger and broader market of people who need this information. And share this with a friend, please. If you've watched it this far, it's not hard to hit the subscribe and share button and just put this in someone else's hands. And if you would like to be on the podcast, please reach out to Wade or myself, or just put a note in here, maybe meet with you offline, and then let's schedule the time. We want people on the podcast. We want people to be dealing with their anxiety, dealing with their salvation, and dealing with their finances and dealing with their family at the highest level possible right now. So for this episode of Farewell, My King, we're coming to the end. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Wade, and he's going to close us out today. But for the Third Stream Theologian, thank you all so much. We pray for you every single day. Just see the views coming up on these shorts and these videos. And I'm like, thank you, Jesus, for allowing us to just fellowship with more people. So thank you for your help. And I'll turn it over to Wade. And we will see you next time on the Farewell My King machine. Wade, take us home.
Ray and I, we do this. We're not living in a vacuum. What we're trying to do is bring about discussion. We're not the types that want to get involved with debates, because debates are almost always about somebody's ego, and it becomes like a court case in lawyers. That's not what it's about. But we don't think we have all the answers, but we're trying to flush out all of the issues so that we can get at the truth. Because speaking for Ray, and I know he'll agree with this, we're pursuing the truth as in the person, and that's with a capital T truth. The small t truth is what is actually true, and that takes not just what him and I think, that takes what y'all think too. And discussing anxiety, I have found, is an amazing way to open up a door for us to recognize what's going on. And sometimes it's an awakening in your spirit. And that's what we're going to continue to pursue. We'd love to hear from you and have discussions, because we don't have all the answers, but we're going to be leading the charge on helping others find it as we discover it ourselves.